And I think we're recording.
Yes, it looks like it.
It does? Wonderful. Okay, welcome everyone. This session is all about learning design, and if we please jump in at any stage during this presentation to ask questions. And as I was just saying to Maxine, we'll be meeting with you every week, so please bear in mind that this will be a slow build for you to get across learning design. So, I don't know how to operate. Okay. So within this session, we are going to go for 2 hours. And it's because I just want to spend a bit of time talking to you about your teaching practice, having a think about your subjects in relationship to learning design, chunking down, building the books in Moodle and what that looks like, so that every week you're actually going to travel through one topic per week, and you're also going to offset it with the planning and the delivery of that topic every week. So by the end of this workshop, you'll be able to plan the learning design for your topics for the LMS build. So LMS stands for Learning Management System. Integrate Tooheys Model into your curriculum development. Having a think and describing various activities that could be designed in your own discipline. So that's where we have an opportunity to actually talk about how you would deliver a particular topic online. What's really important for this online project is to chunk down the resources that are in existence into a better pathway for students to travel through the content. Is there anything outside of that under this topic that you'd like me to cover? No, I'm seeing shaking of heads. So let's move on. Okay, so you're embarking upon a project that is likely to take you out of your comfort zone, but it's all integrated into a much better student experience for learning and for us to deliver online. So far you've done the Photo course before you came into teaching online, and you have recently finished the building in Moodle. Yes? So now we're going to cover off how you actually design your books in Moodle. So Jane, can I just clarify the session last week on Wednesday, what did that actually cover?
Well, Kim actually went through and showed her page essentially and the book, and explained a little bit about how she needed to cull things, the block for the Zoom and the block for the glossary, basically how to break down the book by using the Tooheys headings, and that's what these educators have been given to write their briefs for week 1. So this will sort of consolidate that.
Oh, okay. So she actually covered the Tooheys model.
Well, she just explained how it showed up on the page. So she didn't go into depth with it. She just said, this is based on the Tooheys model. These headings are based on the Tooheys model. Yeah.
All right. So great. And how confident, Maxine, do you feel about actually building in Moodle a book? Have you had much experience in the aspects of actually building a book?
No, but I just spent the last weekend trying to really get my head around it and sent some stuff to Jane yesterday, because I Wednesday was great, but it was just too fast for me. So
Yes.
So how do I feel? Confident, no, but I'm getting there.
Great. Okay. And Hyatt? How are you feeling?
Yeah, much the same. It was really fast, so I'm going to have to go back and watch it twice, 3 times. I think the best way for me is to just give it a go and then learn sort of as I go along. Just wanting to make sure that the book's hidden, and she couldn't clarify that for us. So I think once I give it a go and get into it, it'll be all right. But at the moment, I don't really know what's going on.
Okay. So what I'm thinking is that this is staggered, and so that you're not doing a lot of double handling, I think in the first couple of weeks, we'll actually go through building the books, because it will save you a lot of time if you're all on your computers and just trying the first stages, because once you set up a book, you'll be able to copy it across to all of your topics, and you'll have your template and the style guide ready to go. So what we're focusing here on is the actual learning design. Now, learning design is very different to instructional design. So what you've been learning in building the books is the actual background technical details about actually uploading resources and linking and so forth. This is very, very different to what you do as educators when you plan a session for delivery face-to-face and online. So learning design enables you to actually structure the content and the activities in a manner that enables students to engage with material in a much more chunked down version of the content. So effectively, the desire behind the project online is to refresh the online space. But most importantly, we can build all these interesting activities, but if it actually doesn't come back and link to the learning outcomes and the assessments, we can just overwhelm students with a whole lot of bells and whistles. So this is a topic that is very close to my heart, in that you already have all of the details in your online spaces. You are now going to make key decisions about what to take out effectively, or how to rearrange the content so that it is much more engaging and easier to navigate for a student. So the last point I want to make before we actually launch into this is that the process you're undergoing this trimester will make a vast improvement for the students in the following trimester. And you will continually build on these books with continuous improvement. So at the moment, you are building a framework and a structure so that the students can actually start engaging with the material through your books next trimester. But it doesn't mean that they're going to be perfect. It's going to be a constant, continuous improvement of that space. But I can guarantee you that whatever you create this trimester will be a vast improvement on the student experience to date. So I'm just saying, please take the pressure off yourselves. We may be baking a cake, it may not have icing on it, but it's going to taste a lot better. And
Making me hungry, Kristen.
What's that?
I said you're making me hungry.
I shouldn't use that analogy because I never bake cakes, but so how would we know that the learning design is successful, Maxine?
Hopefully we'll get more students interacting with the material.
Yes.
I would think.
And what's the ultimate?
That everyone interacts and everyone passes at the end of the module.
Exactly. So what you're saying is they're interacting, that's great, but the end game is to help them reach the learning outcomes and be successful. So what successful learning design you will be able to monitor the engagement better in a book, because you'll actually be able to see the engagement on every page as opposed to the engagement in the space overall, the engagement in a discussion forum, which actually may not be indicating to you a student's engagement in the course. So remember that a lot of discussion forums are optional, and therefore using the analytics to gauge the engagement in a forum wouldn't be indicative of how successful your learning design is. And as Maxine was saying, success is completion of that subject. So a lot of the material that I've seen in the online space, it's fantastic and the resources are marvellous, but students don't know how to navigate that content. So Tooheys Model of learning is effectively, it's quite a simplistic design for learning. And as you can see, it's been around for a long time, but it's very beneficial for us to actually unpack how students learn and how we can deliver our courses. So I'm just going to take you through the different phases. And while I do that, just have a think about the kind of activities and the resources that enable these different stages of learning. So effectively, when you introduce a student to a topic, we're talking about a week's content. So Hyatt, how would you introduce a student to a particular topic? Is there any tools that you use when you introduce a student?
You mean like at the beginning of the week?
Yeah.
I'd give some definitions.
Yep.
If there was a very, very good video, I'd use a short segment of that, but I think that there's risk to that and people getting lost in what message to take away from it. So it would have to be like maybe a 3-minute chunk or 5-minute chunk.
I love it. So, you know, a student getting the learner's attention and to introduce them to the topic, quite often it can be a video, a short video that will sort of tap into a particular topic, high level overview. And so the next stage would be get to know a little bit more about it. So in this example, you could actually introduce via an article. So a student could dive in, or to get to know more about it, there might be a series of questions that they would need to answer. Then trying it out, which is what we do best in VET, is various activities, and having a look at the first 2 stages. Sometimes we fail in delivering a particular topic because all we do are the first 2 stages. So we may be delivering a PowerPoint that is just all content, you've introduced the topic, and then you're just going into more about it for 3 hours. What's really important is that breakup of activities, and the same goes for online learning, is that we need to chunk it down so that the content and the theory can be broken up with, well, let's try it out. So, Maxine, what would you do to have a student try out a particular topic?
Online or on campus? Online, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, ideally, try and get them in a Zoom session to have a live breakout room to discuss it and practice it.
Yes.
So if they attend, that's what I do.
Yes, yes. And this brings us to a very good point, you know, about the learning design, because students don't necessarily need to attend Zoom sessions, but you can also get them to try it out outside of a synchronous session as well. But it's always overlaid by that opportunity for practicing skills, building skills within a Zoom session. The next stage is getting feedback. So once again, your suggestion, Maxine, could be that they've tried it out, then they get feedback and they go out into breakout rooms, and they either give peer feedback or they actually come back to the group and, you know, they do some kind of a presentation. The next stage is to reflect and adjust. So the students also can, once they're given that feedback, is they can actually reflect that and implement any changes as part of that process.
Kristen, one of the things that, can I interrupt? Is
yes,
that okay?
Please do.
Yeah, it's one of the things that we did a little bit in building in Moodle as well, is that when there's a lot of terminology, for example, in trauma, informed care, there's a lot of mental health and trauma terms. So one of the tried out was do a little Quizlet that gave them instant feedback about whether they got the answer correct or not, and they were given feedback. So that's another really nice way of testing their knowledge.
Yes,
yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. And as you can see from this model, it's not linear either. So it can be doing that loop at any time. And if you're looking at the theory of delivery, if you were, say, for example, doing a face-to-face class, you normally match 10 minutes of theory with 20 minutes of activities. So we think the same in online, is that a student will watch that short video, like Hyatt described. They might then go on to a bit of an article to dive more into it. They can try it out. They can go into an activity, a quiz, get instant feedback, and implement, reflect and adjust in the actual assessment activity as part of that week topic. And then finally, of course, use it. So this is within the cycle of a weekly topic. Most importantly, using it means applying it, and most pertinently in an assessment. So one of the biggest challenges in learning design is integrating the learning outcomes, because we can spend the whole time throwing resources, but if a student cannot link this to the assessment task, you will lose engagement with that student very quickly. They will get overwhelmed and they can't connect the assessment activity as a surface learner to the content, and students being able to dive into that content when we're not giving clear signposts as to how they are linked. So this model is a theory to have a think about how you're going to deliver a particular topic. So the application of this, this slide just shows some examples of the kind of activities and tools that you can utilise to go up and down and around this model. So, for example, introducing a top-level overview, and I'm going to show you some examples of how the educators have introduced these in the books. And it's pretty much the first page is actually giving a top-level overview of the topic, a case study, a quote to get the learner's attention in. Getting them to dive further down is still an interactive activity, so asking questions relating to earlier learning experiences, trying it out, practical projects, discussion of ideas, which we have in the online environment. Getting feedback is so important, informal and formal feedback. And one aspect of online, especially in the lead project, is you must concentrate on one-to-many as opposed to one-to-one. So when you're giving feedback, it's great to push students into the discussion forums around the assessments. Think about tools that enable you to respond to the group as a whole as opposed to an individual, because some of your classes will have 50 to 100 students in them. So you can see here that they're recommending feedback from peers. So for example, to build their skills, you get them to post and respond to 2 other posts. So you're creating a community of learning. Reflect, adjust and try again through contemplation, writing, reflective journals and discussions. Okay, so let's get into, just one moment, I'm going to pause because there is an annoying alarm next door and I'm just going to turn it off.
Jane, can I just ask a question?
Of course.
So does that mean that, because I guess in the past there was an expectation that we answer discussion forum posts within like a day or two?
Yeah.
So does that mean that that expectation's changed?
That's a good question to throw back to Kristen. Do you want to ask?
Okay.
What's that?
Just a question, Kristen. In the past, there's been an expectation from ACAP that we respond to discussion forum posts within 2 days, within 48 hours. But you just said that logistically that's going to be really hard because of the amount of students. So we want to build up more of the engagement, the peer-to-peer engagement. So does that mean that we can step back and not have to respond, unless it's something like that's unsafe or obviously an assessment question or a disclosure that's a bit, unsafe, but
yeah,
just general discussion.
Absolutely. You've raised a very interesting, a very important element of this, is that when we're delivering engaging learning, we're actually going to show you how to actually chunk your time down in terms of delivery. So we have a framework that I'll introduce to you to sort of start rethinking about the way you interact with students. So when you're thinking about one-to-many, you're actually getting students to go into the assessment forum to talk about assessment. So you will always answer those questions because you know that that is going back to the group around an assessment. If you have a discussion forum, it is important that you're actually putting a topic forward, but you are being very regimented about how many times you actually go into that forum to actually, what are you trying to achieve through this discussion forum? And you have certain touch points across the week where you're diving in. But if you start to answer individual questions, it's basically educating students to go to a particular place to find that information. So if a student is saying, I can't find my whatever, then, from my experience, I actually copy and paste that question and pop it up into the relevant forum. So I think for this trimester, you're going to operate as you always have done in that online space. You're not changing anything. That's very disruptive and overwhelming for a student. to find any changes to content or setup and discussion forums. What I would do is reduce the number of forums and discussions and actually start to think about really targeted approach to discussion forums, because Jane and I were having a bit of a laugh, I think, because we, one online educator was saying, ponder this, ponder this topic. Well, what is the point of pondering? We shouldn't ponder, we should actually do stuff. So sometimes when you think about discussion forums, if it's just to have a chat, then encourage it amongst the peers, but be very clear about how you will give feedback to those students. And this is vital, that when you design your books and you say, enter into the discussion forum, you actually follow it up with, you link it with, and I will give you feedback. Or you will receive, this is a discussion forum to talk amongst peers. Because a student needs to understand, what is the point of this discussion forum? Is it to further their underpinning knowledge of the subject? Is it to explore it? Is it to unpack different theories? But having a discussion forum every week for the sake of a discussion forum is, they could spend their time a lot better in doing actually targeted activities. So even this trimester, even though you're working under the current space, you need to start thinking about the fact that you are delivering one to up to 200 students in the same class space, and how can we make that more efficient. So let's actually get into how this actually plays out. So one of the topics that you actually covered in the last session, I believe, is actually looking at the learning design, the planning part of your online learning design for the books. So when you actually, at the outset of, let me just pull this up. Okay, so just to let the whole group know, you'll all receive shortly, in fact you may have received it already, a Navitas domain email, which will sit alongside your current email that's attached to the learning portal. This will enable you to have full access of what you can see on the screen, which is SharePoint. So everything that we discuss, show you, will be housed under a SharePoint repository, which is very much like Google Drive, and it's in the cloud so that we can collaborate, we can share documents with you, and you will enjoy the same folder structure that we operate under within the VET team. So everything that I show you tonight, you'll have full access to, so please don't worry if I'm flashing stuff up on the screen. And in the interim, I will send these by email as well so that you can download them and have them sitting on your computer. So the first process that you've been asked to do by Jane is to actually design your books. So the only way you're going to efficiently build these books is to have a really good think about how you're going to deliver this topic. So see this design plan like your session plan before you go into a classroom. Is how am I going to deliver this to the students so that it's a structured approach, it has a lot of breakup of activities and topic and resources, and most importantly, the student, when they read this, is what you would do at the beginning of a class. this week I'm teaching you X, Y, and Z. By the end of this class, you will be able to do X, Y, and Z. And this is how it relates to your assessment. So think of your topic sitting in the learning space like a repository of information, and this is the guide to how to tackle the book. Also think about the book as a book. So a student actually turns to the first page of the book and they read this, the learning design. And you're going to use this as you deliver your class. So in week 1, you've already had to think about your plan for week 1. And as you deliver to the students across week 1, you'll reflect on this, your plan for delivery, even though it will vary from what the students experience. And then in the following week, after you've delivered this topic, you'll be able to go in with your plan and actually build the book via this plan. So the first aspect of this plan is part of the Tooheys Model. This page is introducing the students to the topic at hand. And I'm just actually, rather than you looking at the template, this is my template that you may have seen already. And we're asking you to produce this plan every week to give to us so that we can give you feedback before you actually go in and build the book. And this enables you to sort of say, I'm thinking I'm going to deliver it like this. You base it on your subject and assessment guide. So you're actually going back to square one and you're thinking, I do have an online space and it's got a lot of interesting resources, but it's a lot better that I plan it. And you may throw out all the resources that exist in that space. Or you may keep some of it, you may chunk it down, and so forth. But if you plan, it means that you know what's going to appear on every page. And when you go into the instructional design of it, you're not second guessing what you should do next. You'll actually have a plan for every page. So let's just show you an example in terms of what somebody else has done. So let me pull up.
Brianna's is a good one with communicate with clients.
Yes.
Yeah, I showed them the front page of that. I think I sent you the front page of that as a guideline for your brief. Yeah.
Yeah, we've used Brianna's a lot because it's pretty. She also, for example, this is one of Brianna's books. She always puts the roller skates for topic requirements and so forth. But what I wanted to show you was some very good examples of learning design plans that actually had really good linkage to the assessment. So we can jump back and forth between them. What we do want you to do is stick with the style guide. Don't overthink it. Just stick with the current style. So you can actually see that a few of these differ, but you just need to stay with the one format because otherwise students get overwhelmed if you start changing fonts, colours and so forth. So if we look at this one, understanding our clients, so the overview, actually I will just go to, yep, okay. The first section of the overview is to introduce the subject at a top level. And you can quite often have a quote, a case study, a scenario that actually gets the learner's attention in. And this is the top level introduction to the actual topic that you're covering in that week. And this enables a student to relate directly to what are they going to be covering, and most importantly, giving the context for this particular topic. For example, as a case manager, being able to communicate effectively with others is vital. So this really gets the learner's attention because you're actually giving context as to why we're delivering that topic. And you can see from this following page, this topic outlines the skills and knowledge required to communicate effectively with clients, colleagues, management and other industry providers. So it's giving that overview. The learning objectives are the syllabus points that you're actually going to get across in your book. So here you'll outline what are the objectives for this topic. They're going to learn how to use verbal and non-verbal communication to enhance understanding, communicate service information in a manner that is clear and easily understood. So this is your upsell. And most importantly, to rephrase this in a term that on successful completion of this week's topic, you will be able to X, Y, and Z. So a student can understand that this is the biggest selling point of the topic. So by the time I've engaged with this content and done the activities and travelled through the book, I'll be able to do X, Y, and Z. So remember, don't overclaim what a student's going to actually achieve in 1 week, but this also enables you to actually bring it back to the learning outcomes that are derived in the subject and assessment guide. So let's just have a look at an example of the learning outcomes. On successful completion of this topic, you will be able to set appropriate goals and objectives with clients, align client goals and objectives to the SMART formula, etc., etc. Then if we go to the next part, this is really important, and this is where you're probably going to make some key decisions about what you actually want these students to do in that week. Remember that as students that choose online are generally time poor. So everything that they do needs to align to them achieving the learning outcomes or a part of the assessment or both. So, for example, the topic requirements are outlining in dot point the activities within that week. So complete the reading, watch the video, complete the activities for week 1, and never use passive language. So for example, if you say watch the video, you need to link it to watch the video and to do X, Y, and Z. Because if you say watch the video, here you've got a good example. They're saying watch the video with Carl Rogers and Gloria demonstrating the person-centred approach to counselling. So a student knows that they're not watching this random video that might have some information that they may use in their career down the track. It's actually showing the student-centred approach. So let's go over to some examples. Now, some of these educators have said, work your way through the book. Now, that may be a little bit obvious, but, you know, if we tell students to step through, then we're not outlining that they have to, you know, read this, watch that, read this, watch that. They can actually just take a journey through the book. Complete the week 10 online activities below, add at least 1 key term from this week's content to our class glossary, submit assessment 2, and complete the subject evaluation survey for this subject. And finally, what is the linkage to the assessment? And this is where this is a really good example of how to link the assessments. So if I just make that bigger, you can see here that the educator has said, Weeks 4 content relates to Assessment 1 Part A. How useful is that? Assessment 1 Part B, Case Management Interviews, and Assessment 2, Writing Reports A and Case Management Plans B. So a student knows that this week's content will cover off those sections of the assessment. There is no point in you saying, this works towards Assessment 1 due in week 5, and it's week 1. That's not really helping a student to actually link the assessments. So another example would be, let's have a look at, we'll go back a page. Okay, this is an example from Julie. This week's content directly relates to Assessment 1 short answer questions submitted at the end of week 6 of this trimester. You can also relate the assessment in terms of this will provide the underpinning knowledge to do activities for Assessment 2, for example. Because sometimes a topic will just be giving the knowledge, the underpinning knowledge and the knowledge evidence that will enable a student to do the performance criteria of that particular assessment. So what we advise for you in mapping out your week, for example, if you have a 9-hour class, you have 2 hours on top of that to do the instructional build. But if you chunk down your 9 hours dedicated to that class, we recommend that you are spending up to 2 hours in the planning and preparation for delivering your class and writing this overview. And because this will set the stage for everything that you do for the rest of the week in terms of building your book, engaging the students in that particular class for that week. So now it's probably pertinent to actually talk about, once you have this learning design, is how do you actually build the books from this? And this is where we talk about chunking down the knowledge. Oh, we've got a latecomer.
Hi, Louise.
Hi, Louise.
Hi, I have been here a while actually.
Oh, have you?
Oh yeah, probably about half an hour.
Oh, lovely.
But I didn't want to interrupt, so I said I'd be 10 minutes late, so I just thought I'd sit quietly and listen.
Okay, well, please feel free to jump in.
Okay, thanks.
So what I've covered so far is talking about the most important aspect of online refresh is you're actually designing the learning for the students. And when you are delivering, for example, there's a lot of good information to build on this learning design in the Vet Best Practice course. Has everybody got access to the Vet Best Practice course? No?
No, I've asked Erin to, because you know the site you showed me on the landing site today?
Yes.
The Vet room was there, but the best practice wasn't there.
Okay.
So I've asked Erin to set it up for us, and she's going to link a Q&A techno forum as well, just so that the other lead teachers from the Diploma of Community Services Case Management can also help you out with questions. Yeah.
Okay. So let's just have a look at a space so that you can actually see how it's going to play out for you across the trimester. So at the moment, and I'll just make this a little bit smaller. So if we go into any class space, and we will go to, actually, Brianna's is not a good idea because she actually started with the books and continued on. So let's have a look at somebody else's class space as it stands. Okay, so you have already got your online classes built. They're all sitting in there. And so you're not having to build anything for the current students that you'll be delivering to. So what you can see here is an example of what your class spaces will look like once you pop a book in there. So you can see that the class space is as per normal, what you're used to, except you can see here that the educator has built a book, but it's hidden to the students. So rather than having you working in two different spaces and using the content and the resources that exist in your space, you'll just be working behind the scenes in your books in the class space that you're delivering in. Is that clear? Yes? Okay. So when you're designing the book, you'll actually go into, the book just has a series of pages, and your learning design plan that you've sent to us, you will put into the first page of your book. And this will provide the structure. Just one moment, I'm just letting the dog out. Both dogs. Go on. So, when you've sent your learning design plan to us and we've given you a little bit of feedback, after you delivered that class for a week, you'll then actually start to go in and build the book, and you'll create one book per week, and you'll travel with us and your peers to create a book per week so that you can actually travel along with your class as well. So you'll only build your book after you've actually delivered it. So for example, in week 2, you'll actually start to build your book for week 1. Once you've designed it, then you can chunk it down to roll out across the pages. And what's really important is that the subtopics or the syllabus points that you'll be covering will play out across the pages with different activities. So I'm going to actually go back to Brianna's to just show you a nice clean learning design. So effectively, by the end of the course, for next trimester, a student will only see this. So they'll actually see a book that isn't hidden, and they will see a link to activities. And as you can imagine, a student's view of a book and activities is a lot less overwhelming than a whole heap of resources and activities.
And sorry, Kristen, to interrupt. You don't want us to put the activities into the book then?
You'll be linking the activities, but you can't actually put the discussion forums and so forth into the actual books. You're just merely linking them. So, and I'll give you an example of that. So this is Brianna's first page of the learning design, and you don't have to reinvent the wheel. The topic headers are the same for every first page of every book. and you'll just get more and more comfortable about mapping out your program. And as I was saying before, please don't stress, these books don't have to be perfect. They just have to have the content chunked down that is much more achievable by a student. And what's really important about these pages is you also don't develop a scroll of death. So, for example, if you go to another page, you'll see how nice and clean that is. A student can sort of say, please watch this week's lecture recording below, and they'll move on to the next topic. So they don't want, you know, reams of information. We just want to point them to a particular area, a subtopic, and if there are any activities associated with that. And for example, what we do recommend is that you help students navigate through the book, because it's not actually apparent to a student that you're actually turning the pages via these navigate buttons. So what's really important for a student is that the space is navigable, and that they know that they're going from the first page to the last and they will have completed everything. So you can see here, it's a very valid question about activities. Brianna has actually linked, you can post to the discussion forum here, and we will show you how to do that. And what we actually find in the weekly meetings is, if you've got a question about, well, how do I link the activities, we'll actually record somebody showing you how to do it in the weekly meeting, and then we'll put it up in the best practice. Because remember that you're actually doing a lot of different things in this project. You are doing instructional design, you are doing engaging delivery in a lead role, you are doing learning design, and you're building those books. So, you know, you won't get across all of the nuances of building books straight away, but once you've created a style guide of your book, you'll just copy it into all of the sections and you'll just start to populate that book. So you can see here that Brianna's linked it, and it will automatically go to the forum. And I don't know whether you spent much time on the actual template and how it works, but you notice that we've taken all the blocks out from the right-hand side. We've cleaned up the top banner, and we've taken out any blocks that aren't used. So you have a standard set of blocks, but what you do need to make a decision about with your subject is that you don't actually have to have a glossary sitting in the blocks. You also don't need, you don't necessarily need a blog posts or anything. You can keep it very, very simple. And the other change that you'll see in these new templates is the ability for a student to actually tick stuff off as they go, which it doesn't actually link up to anything, but it's a way a student can actually understand where they've actually got to week by week. So if we go into another book, and we can actually see how Brianna's chunked down the content.
Can we just ask, Kristen, can I just ask a question before you go into that, about the blogs? The one that we're recording of ourselves, that will go into the block that Erin has set up. That's visible to the students in term 2, right?
Yes.
And if we want to put in like a reflection block or a glossary, that's visible to the students?
Yes, yes, it is.
So the only thing that's not visible is the book.
That's correct.
And any, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So if we change around the activities, Like if we put in a discussion forum, that's visible?
Up here, absolutely.
Yeah. No, down underneath, like let's say go down to week 1, that list, where it's linked from the book. So like it says activity 1.1, that's visible.
Yes, that is. Actually,
So what if we change it? What if we change what they need to do?
Because you're not actually delivering via the books, I wouldn't actually, you can link them, but the students won't be accessing that link via the book because they can't access it.
This term, yeah.
Yep.
But then if it's there, won't they do it? Or some of them
Yes.
will do it, some of them will wonder what that is.
Yes. So if you have a look at this top section, this is, we've actually made this very consistent between all class spaces. What's really important is that class announcements are one way, as you know. Yep, so this is just what you actually say from week to week, and they can't actually respond. But in the discussion forums, you will be setting these up, and you can actually set these up well in advance, but they actually won't work with the books. You can link them to the book, but they actually won't be getting to them from the book because they'll never access it. So setting up a discussion forum here will just be for your current students.
Kristen, I think why I was asking about can we put the activities into the books was because say like this term, I mean I won't go mad, I'll keep it simple, but I mean say I want to create an activity this term for next term.
Yep.
I can't pop that in the book and it's going to show on the class space. So how are we going to create any activities?
Okay, so I'm going to actually refer that to the guys because they were doing exactly what you'll be doing this trimester.
Okay.
In that they were linking activities, but how did they work in the following trimester?
Yeah, because otherwise we can't create any in that case if they're outside of the books.
Yeah, so what you're actually going to do is you're going to create the book with a placeholder for a discussion forum, and then you will upload those, you know, and link those for the next trimester. But that's a really important question as to how they're doing it in that staggered approach.
Okay, great. Because obviously we can't do all that again next term when it goes live. You'll need to check it, I imagine, as well.
Yeah. So,
maybe this is why Community Services Case Management had 2 different sites.
Okay.
No, because they were delivering online from this site, but not from their books.
Okay. Yeah, that was their second stage. Yeah.
Yeah, that's correct. So it brings up 2 points, is that what's really important when you're building the books and the templates and the blocks and so forth, if we go back to what is important for consistency from our aspect, is that once you, let's just go into somebody else's class space that is indicative of how we set it up.
Are they called orphaned activities? I know this term's been used, Kristen. Yep. Is that what they are? Things that are not currently being used, but they're... Yep.
And they automatically go to orphaned activities. So why we want you to work in the current space is as soon as you hide something, you know, you won't lose anything that is in that class space, and don't be nervous because you can always hide it and bring it back to the fore. So orphaned activities will go down into the final section of the books.
Can I ask a question about the discussion forum in terms of assignment activities, you know, Q&A for assignments? Could we add that into this current class space already on the top? Or?
Yeah, that's really important, because what we made a decision about, that's why I'm just trying to find one that is standard. We have class announcements, assessment templates, discussion forum and assessment forum.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you would need that specifically so students know where they can ask their questions.
Yeah, and we should populate those from the get-go. Is that assessment 1 is up there with the title, so students don't start adding in their own assessment forums.
Mm-hmm.
So what's really important as you go into those classes is just double check that you've got all of the assessments already in that forum, so that students know they're going to that one forum to ask questions about assessment 1, and then they'll move on to the next, rather than having students set up random. We also find with what's successful with the online lead project is that the discussion forums are also laid out prior to the term, so students know it doesn't become a chat room for students, you know, where they'd start putting random topics up. It's sort of you're keeping them focused on the activities rather than just a cafe, because you can also do what some other educators have done, and I'll show you Anne-Marie's, which is, let's have a look. Anne-Marie is here. So if we have a look at Anne-Marie's, her icons are a little bit big, but down the bottom, she actually set up a cafe for the students. And you can actually, instead of setting it up as a cafe, you can just add it as a cafe within a discussion forum where students can just chat about random stuff, as opposed to your targeted discussion forum topics. Okay, so
Kristen, sorry, is all of that, are we supposed to do that this semester, or can we just leave it all be and it's for the next semester?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
So you will, when we're talking about discussion forums, you do need to put those in.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have a particular discussion that you want students to engage with, it is probably already in there, actually, because your discussion forums will already be in there. So that actually brings me to the point, do not touch any discussion forums, because Erin has linked them all and checks those links. So when you come across your space and you're going down as it's laid out, you will see discussion forums already built in to the online space. Do not touch them. So yes, really good point, Maxine. Take the pressure off yourselves. The only thing that you're doing is building books. Yeah,
and doing the welcome video, which you would do as an online teacher. And can I just add, with the welcome video, Kristen, the concern is that we do have this term the assessors and the lead teachers, and that is different to previous terms. So we might have a couple of assessors that are per subject. So do those couple of assessors and the lead teacher create a welcoming video together to say, I'm your lead teacher and we're your assessors, or how do they do that?
No. What's really important, and something that we had to tell the guys in the community services online lead, is when you create a welcome video, create it as if you're going to use it, somebody else is going to use it the next trimester. It's a welcome video about the subject. So because you have on-campus students sitting in the same space as the online, you're introducing a subject. For example, when I was doing welcome videos, I did the welcome video for 6 subjects that I never taught. And what you're actually doing is you're giving a very personal touch because you are the online lead, but you may not be next trimester. So please keep those welcome videos as, hi, my name's Maxine, and I'm introducing you to case management practice. This is a subject about this. This is how you navigate through this space, etc., etc. And keep it short.
We were told to put in the personal aspect as well, just a little bit about the individual's orientation background.
Yep.
What they've done previously, and what industry experience they're drawing on as to that subject. So how does that work? Even though they are one teacher in the
yeah,
and they can do that generically, but they're still indicating how they're drawing on their own professional experience to that subject.
Yep. And you can still make that quite a generic video because you're introducing your background as an industry subject matter expert in introducing the subject.
Yeah.
You also, because you do have all of the students sitting in the same space, it's a wonderful opportunity for somebody to go, wow, there's a person behind this, you know, even if they're not my teacher in the on-campus space.
Can I ask a question? If we have students that are sitting in online just with us or going into classrooms as well, from next term onwards, does the classroom teachers, do they use our book to teach? Otherwise, we might have 2 different things that they...
No, they will. They'll use the books because...
Okay, so they won't any longer use the subject information. They will then use the book to teach.
No, the subject information's still there. Subject assessment guide is the same. Orientation is the same. So the icons that you're used to have just been changed here, but they're identical to what the students are used to. So if you click on subject information, you'll get all of the same assessment guide, etc.
But what about next term when we're using the book? When, you know, in the next term when there's a book instead of what is here now, how does that translate to the space in the classroom? Because if students are also going to the classroom, that may be quite different for them then. Looking at the online space that's done by us and then going into the classroom, or is that all the same? Do you know what I'm trying to say?
At the moment, a on-campus student is engaging with resources that are popping up there. What we're actually enabling is an on-campus student, say for example, is sick, didn't attend the on-campus class, they'll actually be able to go through the content through the book.
Okay.
So the content is the same, the assessments are the same, the activities, the on-campus students know that they don't have to engage in the activities because they will generally be taking place in the classroom.
But you said before that we can change it in the book, so we may put different activities in than there are now in the subject guide or in the PowerPoints. So if we start to make some changes to it, how does that then translate to the on-campus students who may, where the educator might just go from the subject guide and those current PowerPoints? So the activities they're doing in class may be quite different to what we're suggesting here on the online space. Do you know what I mean? That's what I'm trying to sort of get my head around.
Okay, so now
if we're making those changes.
Yeah, so at the moment there are activities in there that are not relevant to on-campus students anyway. Is that correct?
Yes.
In saying that?
Yes.
So the only difference is that it's in a book format, and the PowerPoints are no longer, they actually should be chunked down as well, because that's not an engaging experience for a student to go through. Even the educators have been doing Screen-o-matic, and they've been recording the PowerPoint and talking over the top of it. That's great. But ideally what we want to get to is snippets of that PowerPoint, and then they go into an activity, and then they go back to the part of the PowerPoint. So it's a different way of thinking. And what I do want to stress is that you're not actually building activities. You're probably just taking away activities that you don't feel is actually pointing directly to the outcomes. Because what I see from my perspective, and I'm like one of your students, is there's a whole heap of resources that could be classed as just in case. They're not just in time resources. So the difference is that when a student needs to engage in an assessment, they need just in time knowledge, not just in case. So we're actually curating the resources. So we're saying, watch this video from the 2-minute mark to the 3-minute mark and answer these questions. Because we want to give the students the world, but we've got to park it in the right place. So, for example, you can see in one of Laura's books, for example, she will have put down in some of the pages further reading. Let's see if we've got an example of that. So when you see all these resources, you actually need to help students navigate their way through it. If you don't feel that resource is pertinent to the outcomes of that topic, you just put it down the bottom of the page and say further reading. So we're actually starting to cull all of these resources, not build on them. Because I think...
Can I just clarify something?
Yeah.
When you said we're not building activities, so for example, there's an activity like, for example, building a wiki, which would be a really good online activity. Better than PowerPoints, better than pages and pages of information. But that's an activity I need to build.
Yes. No, quite right. And what I'm saying is that don't feel like you have to turn all the bells and whistles on to engage students. You actually have to make very clear decisions about how you're going to engage those students. So one of the things that we found, like building a wiki, is as soon as students start adding to a glossary in the block on the left, that builds a whole community of learning that is much more pertinent than getting them to, read a whole glossary that has already been created for them around that topic.
Kristen, if a student said to me, am I meant to read the subject and assessment guide when we move to the new book? I mean, I would say yes, the assessment guide, of course, but really no, because you need to work your way through the book. But of course okay, so I'll just say it's for an additional resource, but it's got similar information in, because really it's just double content, double information.
And you've actually raised probably the most pertinent point about this exercise, is that I want to strip away those subject and assessment guides. They're too arduous to update. You're going to actually be updating through these books. So you're going to be curating content and building on these in the books. So we're not having to go back and change the correlation in the published documents. So absolutely, I wouldn't I wouldn't take away the subject and assessment guides, but you're right on the money in that a student, if they work their way through the book, they will have covered everything they need to do to achieve the assessments and the learning outcomes of that subject. I completely agree with you, and we can start stripping down those subject and assessment guides. I mean, how many students read a 60-page document when it can be a living, navigable experience in the online in a curated topic book?
You know, that brings me back to this question that I had before. So if this is what's going to happen, that we're stripping it down and we're reorganizing it for the online students, what about my students who are in class? What is the on-campus teacher going to do as we're stripping back the study guide or the subject guide? Is this going to be confusing then for the students if we're creating a book in a certain way and we have all the students that then also going to class and then maybe getting different content because the on-campus teacher is teaching them something else? That was my question before. How is this going to work for these people, for the students?
One of our concerns is at the beginning, where I was talking about the Tooheys Model, if you're only doing the first two stages, generally that's a PowerPoint in a class, you know, introducing a topic and giving more information. The best way that an educator in the on-class environment can engage with these students is through a book.
They would use the... Yeah, they would use our book as well then, so it's continuity. That was sort of my question. Yeah. So they would basically start teaching from that same book.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And this would be exactly how students would, you know, death by PowerPoint, whereas if you are designing a learning experience, a student will get to the end of that topic and they've actually travelled through the whole Tooheys Model. You know, effectively, you've just introduced multiculturalism and you introduce an idea, have a quick theory, topic, look at this video, do this activity, explore, give feedback. They've done the whole Tooheys Model within one page. And that is, you know, when you're planning a session to deliver in class, that you need to break it up between, you know, the cycle of theory, demonstration, practice, reflection, theory, and so forth. So we want to actually get away from PowerPoints per se. Now, that doesn't mean you'll notice that PowerPoints exist in the vet staff room for every subject. So if an educator is feeling daunted by this prospect, they can do a combination of the two. You know, they can pull up their old PowerPoints, but you are shaping the learning design for all students and we're not moving topics around. We're actually just helping make some clear decisions about how to chunk it down so a student can actually travel through this. Oh dear, now ponder this, my number one not word. So a student can travel through this and just know that by the time they reach the end of the book, they've actually completed the topic requirements. And you'll notice with these books, and these guys have taken, you know, a huge journey, as you will, in, you know, what does work, what is too busy. We've given them guidance every week about just be mindful of putting too much onto a page. You know, is it necessary to have all of this text in a page? And the pages that I've actually been showing you are very good examples of chunking knowledge down, because a student can cope with 12 pages like this, that's, you know, cleanly laid out, than, 4 pages of, just another scroll of death through that content.
So, Kristen, can I just clarify something again? Sorry. So, if the book is hidden in trimester 2, we still are using PowerPoints, right?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And if we want to delete resources ready for trimester 3, we cannot do that because students will need it in trimester 2.
You don't need to, if you're creating a book, the resources will be sitting in the book. So you won't be deleting anything. You just won't, by next trimester, you'll flip over to the book and we'll hide all of the old resources. So,
but we can't do that week by week.
Well, you're actually delivering from what's there and you're creating books in the background. So your decisions around deleting resources will be represented in the book as opposed to in the teaching space. So you leave everything up there as is. The only thing that you're playing with and making decisions about not including resources will be represented by what exists in your books.
And the block, like if we put in a glossary or a reflection block.
Yes.
That glossary you can set up for this trimester and it'll stay there for the format. But you actually do have a good question about, because students contribute to that glossary, or your idea of creating a wiki, how do we reset for the next trimester for students? So that's a question for the techno people.
Okay. So Kristen, you're now saying that we can put some new things in this trimester if we want, like a glossary, even though it's not part of the current subject assessment guide. So I thought you were telling us we can't do that till next semester. Now you're saying we could.
The glossaries, I presume, they're up there for the whole trimester. It's not something that you're adding on. So let's just check out how they've set them up. So
there isn't a space for one yet. Sorry.
We haven't ever used glossaries in the Diploma of Counselling before.
No.
Never.
Okay.
They've never been there. We've had the welcome video, haven't we? I think, yeah, we've had the welcome video, not the welcome video. No.
Okay.
But
so
teachers put welcome videos up, even though the block might not be there.
let's just have a look at what's been set up currently. Okay, what is one of your courses?
One of the top ones, counselling and communicate. Oh, for this, like, what you're teaching applied counselling therapies, aren't you, Maxine? Up a little higher, applied counselling therapies or group work and domestic violence. 6th one down, 1, 2, 3, 4. Applied. Next one down. Yep, that one.
This one?
That's Maxine's. Yeah.
That's Maxine.
Maxine.
I'm doing theories, Jane.
Oh, sorry. I thought you're doing yeah, that's right. Sorry.
Maxine, just to let you know, I contacted Erin because I thought I remembered that we couldn't create any blocks. So any blocks so she's done the welcome video, and so I was going to ask her to set up the Zoom button block. Not that I know how to create the Zoom yet. But so we can't actually create the blocks. That's right, isn't it, Jane? Erin needs to do it.
Yeah, that's Erin's territory.
Okay.
Okay, so just ask her, I think.
Oh, so we've got a glossary now, a box. That's good.
Yeah. So this block, you can just choose to take away or not, or leave it in there.
Okay.
That is a decision. And if you would rather, I just take it out. if you don't want to deal with setting up a glossary.
Mm-hmm.
It's completely optional because you can have a think about it for next trimester. Because if you put a glossary in, then you're allowing those online students, and it can run by itself.
I don't have a glossary in mine, so it must be just some people may and some people may not. I'm looking at it.
Which
I don't have
yours, Carola?
I'm doing crisis intervention and case management. And I don't think I've got the site open unless I'm looking at the wrong thing. But
the fourth one down, Kristen, from the top.
Sorry?
The fourth one down from the top is crisis intervention. Yeah.
No,
see, I don't have one. Yeah, so I don't have. So it's obviously not. They're not all the same, maybe.
Is that because you asked for it, Maxine?
I didn't ask for it. I accidentally created one and couldn't remove it on the weekend. So maybe it's been moved for me.
But that is a decision for you guys, and it is completely optional whether you have it or not. And it's very simple just to remove it.
Okay.
And you can't break anything. If you've got a hidden book, you can.
Don't say that.
You can actually break a lot of things, but remember that let's not change anything in the top section because Erin will have your guts for garters.
So in the top section at the moment, we don't have an assessment discussion forum yet. So will that come still, or do we put that in?
Yeah, I think that's really important.
So we can put that in?
We can ask Erin for that. I think we can certainly. I think that would be a really nice segue, you know, something to introduce this term would be very helpful.
Yeah, because I think it's really good to have that.
I do
and
too.
All the other guys, we didn't have it at the beginning of community services, and we unanimously made the decision that it would sit separate to the discussion forum, especially when you've got your online assessors. And they know that that's where they go in and contribute as well as yourselves. You know, it's so important. So I've got down here, we just need to think about, so from this group, you can have a placeholder for a glossary if you would like, and just indicate to us, you know, just email myself, if you, or Jane, and just sort of say if you would like a block. You can create a block very simply as well, but what we do want to do is have consistency about the blocks and how they sit, so that a student gets used to navigating those blocks. They always know where to find the actual welcome video and the Zoom link.
So, Kristen, will there be a Zoom link block set up for us for Thursday for this term?
Yeah.
And how will somebody send us some instructions on how to do a Zoom poll thing? Doodle poll? What is it called?
Yes, a doodle poll. Yeah.
All right.
So we'll get that in time for Thursday.
Yes. And what was the other thing?
I think Kristen, you were going to clarify how we're meant to set up activities when they're set outside the books.
Yes.
Kristen, sorry, another question. In our welcome video, you said, yes, that's fine, keep it very generic. I was just going to say as well, I'm one of the educators, and we now have assessors who you'll be meeting later in the term. Do I need to say that or not, because it's generic and it's going to be used again? What would you like us to say?
Well, you're entering into a different setup, which I'm really happy about, is that the on-campus students will be in the same space, so they will be clicking on the welcome video. So I would really not talk about the assessors being separate.
Okay, that's fine. Thanks.
I really like the idea that you're actually giving a very personal approach to, you're actually a face that's introducing the subject to a student. And, you know, a 3-minute video. Have you been given the 12 tips to making a good welcome video?
Yeah.
That I will provide. I know for a fact that creating a great welcome video in 13 steps. Okay, so I'm going to send this to you by email, the old way. God, sorry, I've got to let the dog out again. Fussy!
Jane,
Yeah.
Jane, if we, like the draft video text that I submitted, can you tell me soon if that's okay or not, so I know whether I can go ahead?
Yes, I've 4 of your things came in today. From what I could see, it was fine. I think there was just a couple of points that I needed to add that I'm back in on Wednesday.
Okay.
Able to wait till then?
Yeah, because I'll have to do it on Wednesday if it's going live on Thursday. That's my worry. It's just the time factor.
Yeah.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Will do.
Okay, if any of you have an issue with creating a video and you're not, sorry, and you're not confident, what you can actually do is take that block out. If you like, it's rather than putting the pressure on yourself. But the guys, if you have a look at this instruction, I'll send it out to you tonight. It's very easy to do just with your iPhone sitting on top of the computer with your, you know, sort of auto cue, so to speak. And the trick is you just write a simple script and just have a go. But if you run into any difficulties, even if you put it up a week later, it's better than you sort of not being happy with the welcome video and then taking it down and then putting another one up. So please don't put pressure on yourselves. And also, as we were saying before, it's really important that you join us once a week, especially in the early stages, because you're actually going to learn so much from each other as well as the people that are there to guide you through the process. And the fact that the books won't roll out till next trimester, we really want you to travel with the whole group in producing a book per week, because it means that you can sort of stay on top of your delivery and creating the books, and you can always go back once you've learnt a few things. And it also enables you to put placeholders in the book. If you wanted to create a short video of a section of a PowerPoint and you don't have the time, just put a placeholder there. And you can always go back and, you know, create that video when you're feeling more confident about it. What you're actually doing by creating a learning design is of paramount importance to this project, in that whatever you do in creating these books, you're actually going to make it a far superior student experience for these guys. And it doesn't have to be perfect. It just means that you've just chunked down this content so that it's actually achievable by the students. At the moment, they're looking at just so many resources that I don't know how they're not overwhelmed by what's out there at the moment. So I think I've pretty much covered all that I wanted to. We've just got somebody coming in.
Me. That was me just saying timekeeping, 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And is there something any more with the Tooheys model that we need to address?
Yeah.
Before?
So we've actually covered it. The only aspect of the Tooheys model is something for you to think about when you're creating the activities in your book. So remember that the first page of your book is actually the introduction to the topic. It's giving that top level overview. So if I go back to the PowerPoint to put it into context, so the Tooheys model is designed for you to have a think about how the book's going to play out across the week. And when you do the learning design, a lot of educators will actually plan out the pages as well. And this means that when you go into the build of the book, you're actually not building it as you go and trying to think what resources you're going to use, because you've already made that decision through your first page. And a lot of the educators felt very nervous about actually getting rid of resources. You're not. You're actually just keeping those as orphaned activities if you want to bring them back. What is important is that if we go to the actual right, okay, this is probably a good example of the learning design. So educators prior to the start of the week will submit the learning design for the next week. So for example, before we go into week 1, Jane's asked you to have a crack at the learning design. I'm going to put up a whole bunch of examples of what the educators have done, so that you can see how they broke up their plans, and then I will provide the snapshot as to how that plays out in their books, their designs. I think, as somebody said early on in the piece, you know, the instructional design and the technical details of how to put a book together is you'll pick up as you go. Building a learning design will develop over time, and it's quite a high skill set that you're embarking on. So that's why it's really important that you come into those meetings and really break it down, because what I did find with the other educators is they were really bouncing off each other in terms of ideas, and you should be sharing your spaces and so forth, so that you can actually just start feeling comfortable about what you're doing. So I wouldn't labour any of these points any further, because the only thing that you need to concentrate on at this point in time is plan your week 1, have a crack at it, do this 1 page, send it in to us. We'll give you feedback. And then only in week 2 will you start to have a go at the book in week 1. So the only question I have is, have you been given a template that you can copy across?
Template.
Jane, did I see emails going back and forth?
A template, when you say a template, you're meaning this overview outline?
No, the actual book that you can copy into your space, so you've actually got a template?
No, I don't think so. I think Erin's given, they've just got their class, they've just got a class base set up that's for the book.
Okay,
I think.
So what we can do is let's chunk it down, and the first week when you come into the meeting, it'll be a PD about making a book. As soon as you've made a book in your space, you'll be able to copy it into every week. so that you're not actually having to build a book and pages and so forth. So this will also enable you to get used to the style guide for the books, and that you'll literally just be going in and populating with your activities and text and so forth. So, Jane, have we got a possible 2 time slots that work across the group?
I haven't sent out a doodle poll yet to find out the regular occurrence, because I wasn't quite sure the availability of you or who was going to be involved in that at this stage, because you're off campus this week.
Jane, do you want me to actually just put out a doodle poll around my availability?
Yep, great.
And can I ask everybody just to tick every time slot that they think that they can make? And then we'll decide on 2. And what we did find with the last group is half could turn up in the morning and half in the evening. And we're more than happy to run 2 a week to capture everybody. And it'll actually just make you feel a lot more comfortable about the process. We're travelling with you every part of the way, so you're not having to go off and do anything on your own. What you will actually get is feedback on your books as you develop them. And we'll actually go in and write in your books in a different colour to just give you sort of instant feedback about, have you thought about something? Yeah? And everybody will be at different stages, and that's fine. You know, it's a wonderful journey to take, because this is the way forward in any education scenario. Because the next step, as we discussed, is getting on-campus students to be utilising their spaces a lot more in a flipped classroom model. And the fact that we're not doing that at this point in time with the low contact hours is a travesty, because students need to engage online when they've only got 12 hours contact a week with an educator. So, don't fear the process, just have a crack at it. I mean, half of the educators were just really fumbling along, and then the trajectory went right up and everybody started to plateau out and feel comfortable about it. You know, the idea behind the Tooheys model is just to give you some ideas. Fill out the template, and that will guide the process of populating a book the week after.
Can I also just say to everyone that Claire Pemberton, that you've done the building in Moodle, said that the current building in Moodle is available for a couple more weeks for you to watch the videos if you want to. However, if you enrol in the self-paced building in Moodle, then you will have access to all the videos and material for as long as you like. So I encourage you to enrol in the building in Moodle course, self-paced.
Does that mean we've got to do those assignments again?
No, you don't have to do any of those again, but you've got access to the sites, because we've all got our little certificates. Yeah.
So what we also might do, so that we can involve the other educators in, you know, running mini workshops for you, is we actually might have a bit of an agenda for the first couple, so that you can dive in, and we'll actually record people like Brianna showing you how to link in the books and so forth. So what I might do is just give Jane sort of a running sheet about what, you know, will be covered in the first couple of weeks. And remember that anything in the book that you don't know how to do, just put a placeholder, and then we can figure it out at a later stage about how
What's a placeholder?
So if you were in a book and you were starting to edit, just say video goes here, or I want a really funky link here, or I want a link to the glossary here, but I don't know how to do it. And it might be a good indication to us when we're looking at your books that you've got a gap in your knowledge about doing anything in particular.
Thanks, that's great.
Yeah. Right.
Kristen,
Yes.
can I add on your list, and if you think it's appropriate, can we all get an hour Zoom account, please? Because I'm going to run the first couple of hour sessions whilst I'm doing the polls to get preferences, and we don't have our Zoom accounts. We can only run 30-minute sessions, because it said that in community services the preference was for fortnightly, hourly sessions for the live sessions. That was the preference. And so, like, I will still get a preference, but I'd like to run 2-hour sessions. Is it possible now where, you know, we're sort of downsized on the educators because of the change in roles, we can all get an account each, please?
You all have pro accounts. You are all getting given pro accounts.
Okay. Will we be able to just log into our or will you send us the details?
You should have been sent them by now. I gave them all of your details. So the one thing is that we are going to every educator having a pro Zoom account. Next trimester, we're actually going to integrate the Zoom into the learning spaces. So rather than having a Zoom session sitting up on the block, you'll actually be integrating your Zoom sessions into the class sessions under the topics. But I said, let's just take baby steps and stick with the regular Zoom sessions. One thing about engaging the students in 2 30-minute sessions or whatever, have a think about your learning design plan, and actually what Brianna did, which was a very interesting approach, was she actually wasn't running Zoom sessions every week. She was actually having very targeted Zoom sessions, like you're suggesting, Louise, of 1 hour, where it's actually targeted towards a particular part of the assessment. And it can be skill building, or it can be, okay, in this session, we're actually going to do some practice of the skills in breakout rooms, and they were getting really good engagement in the Zoom sessions when they had a very targeted approach, because people that are time-starved are going, well, I'm not going to a Zoom session to listen to other people wax lyrical about the topic. I actually want to attend so I can get a hand with this assessment.
Yeah, and I always plan my Zoom sessions when I run them so that students know what it's about. And I say prepare, read through assessment 3. We're going to have a question and answer session and practice a confidentiality script, and so that they're prepared beforehand. I have to say there's still only 2 or 3 students, but they were the same students who were engaged. So at least there was a recorded session. So they know what's going to happen in the Zoom session.
I love it. I love it. And Brianna was doing that in terms of, you know, some students might prefer 2 30-minute sessions just to jump in, ask some questions, jump out. That's your baby, how you want to run it. Did you guys need help with running a doodle poll for your students?
Yes.
Okay. What I'll do is we'll do that. Oh, geez. I mean, I can do that right now. Show you how.
Quite easy to do, even though,
no, let me just put some really important points, because once you do a doodle poll, it's really important that you're actually doing a poll, not a random, poll about what.
That was my mistake the first time. Yeah.
What I'll do is I'll do a short recording and send it to you about the doodle poll. Okay, so what I'm going to do as part to sort of wrap up this session is I'm just going to jot down the takeaways, and if I can get you guys to add into that anything that I've missed, because we've got a few questions for the techno bots around discussion forums and getting the assessment forum set up consistently across all the spaces, to understand how these reset, you know, glossaries and reference guides in the blocks, how do activities interact, the Zoom, I have to send you that 13 quick steps to a successful welcome video. Doodle poll. Yeah, okay. So I'm just going to recap in an email.
Yeah.
I just got one question. At the moment, I've got my own Pro account and I'm using that, have been using that in the last term. Can I still use it, or do I have to switch to the ACAP one?
No.
Still use that.
Stick with yours. And we'll also, you'll see a little template in the blocks, and all you have to do is indicate what time, you know, your guys want to come in, and the Zoom link. It'll be simple. Yeah, no, stick with what you've got. And, you know, this is a little bit different to community services. So Jane is completely on the front foot with all the questions that arise out of it. Anything that Jane doesn't raise and, you know, it's urgent, just keep us honest and just keep hassling us by whatever means until you feel comfortable in your space. I mean, it's a super short time frame, but remember, you're not changing anything in the space. If anything, if you see a block there that you don't want, just take it out. Yeah? Okay.
Can I just have one last clarification, Kristen, about the assessors, because we've had conflictual information. Apparently in community services, the students wanted to know who were going to mark their assignments. You know, it's like I'm used to having you as my lead teacher, and then who's this person marking my assignment? I'm wondering the best way for the assessors to introduce themselves without it interfering with the on-campus students getting confused.
So I do believe that the discussion forums work in group setup. So it would be a good idea that the assessors introduce themselves in the assessment forum.
Ah, okay.
Ah,
okay.
No, I'll ask.
Yeah, that's just, yeah.
Because they could announce themselves in the class announcements if they have access to that.
So, Jane, will we get to meet the assessors first so we know who they are?
Well, once I speak, Melissa's been off campus for the last couple of weeks with sickness, so I've just got to get very clear about who the assessors, I was working on them last week, who the assessors are for each of the subjects. And I think what we'll do is we'll give you the email addresses and you can go from there. Yeah. So you know who's going to be your assessors. Yeah. And likewise. Yeah. We just recently put together on Thursday and sent it out in the vet staff room, the assessor guidelines. So what the roles and responsibility of an online assessor are. So that's up in the vet staff room. That went up on Thursday or Friday. Yeah. Yeah. And part of it is to communicate with you as lead teachers. Yeah.
And Kristen, who's going to send us the new Zoom link that we need, our own codes?
So Education Technology has, that's something I have to follow up. They should be sending it to your ACAP email. But what I might do, Maxine, is just to make sure, I'm just going to, once they assure me that it's been sent out, I'm just going to check with you first and foremost that it's actually gone through.
Thank you.
That should have been set up last week, but obviously you need that communicated to you. They may have given us a list and passwords, but it should have gone to you. And as I was saying right at the beginning, all of you have been put forward for a Navitas account, so that we can actually start collaborating and sharing in the one space, finally. Okay, so I am going to send out a doodle poll as well to you guys ASAP, so that we can set up a session or two across the week, and we'll take it from there. Jane, did we anticipate that we were just going to pull in some of the mentors in the other program to sit in on the meetings to answer the technical questions?
Well, I guess given that the other team are, offline for now, I think that would be the best idea. That's why I thought, particularly with the forum that you suggested, the Q&A forum in the best practice space. Well, that was the other thing. I'll make sure that Erin has the best practice available for everyone.
Yes.
And that we'll link I can set up a Q&A forum for technical support there. But I guess we've got to talk about who's available in the lead teachers from the other diploma to see if they are happy to join the meetings.
Yeah, we can even just alternate so that any questions that you guys have, they can just jump in, explain it, share their screen, and we record it, and then we pop it in the best practice for those that may be in the other meeting.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so, Kristen, we wait for the book template to be put into our class space before next week, in week 2, developing the book, and until then, send weekly outlines in that same Tooheys model to Jane.
Yeah. So just follow the template that I've given. It's got an explanation beneath it. So all you have to do prior to next week is get together that learning design plan. You won't be building the book till week 2. So in the first week, we'll have a meeting where if I haven't given you a template book, I'm going to get you all to go in, which we did with the last group, and actually make a book from the get-go, and then we can populate it with the style guide so that you're feeling confident about setting up pages and so forth, because each book will have different amount of pages.
Yeah. So at the moment, the request in terms of the schedule, Christian, was that the teachers were to give today that front page brief, basically. Right. That was and based on what you've learnt today as well, you might adjust that slightly, but I'll give you feedback on based what those of you have sent it to me sometime this week. What we might do, Jane, is that's a big ask. How many people are in this project? How many subjects are we doing? 8.
So that's too big a job for you, Jane, just to be giving feedback on every learning design. So we'll just divvy it up between us.
Yes, thank you.
Yep, so that we'll start teaming up. I'll take the difficult educators.
Okay, well, whoever works with Christian, you've been identified. I don't know who.
Oh no.
No, Maxine's going to start giving feedback on other people's. Going to start running the sessions.
Yeah.
I doubt it.
Thanks, guys. We've gone over time. That was just basically the Tooheys model is almost like a conversation piece before you go into designing. And you know best as subject matter experts and professional teachers the kind of activities. You may really like your online spaces and you're just wanting to chunk them down into pages. So I think if you take anything away from this, just think about the student experience. Imagine yourself in the student's shoes trying to get across this content when, you know, those surface learners only want to achieve the assessments. And how do we get them from A to B with, you know, a non-threatening pathway through, you know, a lot of information? So I think it is quite a high-level skill to bring the complex and distill it down to be accessible to students, and that is quite a feat of achievement. We can throw a lot of resources at students, but distilling it and making it accessible is the success of a learning design. So I think it's going to be pretty amazing journey for you guys. And also bear in mind, no pressure, you are changing the shape of these courses to come. Maxine's laughing. But, you know, if you can imagine, as you build these learning designs, you are really going to shape the curriculum going forward. You know, the content, the framework's there, the subject and assessment guide is there, but, you know, how we deliver that is of paramount importance in the future. Any final questions and comments before we sign off? No, it's a lot of information. Well, we'll see you next week. I'll send out an email how to do a doodle poll, because that would be great within the first week, the welcome video, and a recap of the questions that you have.
And we'll send you this recording, as we've done with all other PDs, by email. We'll send you a Dropbox that's been working for everyone to be able to use that link for the Zoom recordings. Yeah, great.
Oh, I don't know. I haven't tried. Okay, thank you.
You've been participating. You didn't need to watch it again.
Thanks.
All right.